Thank you, Oz. Let that sink in for a while. It sounds like a tribute to the winds of our world, which is our theme today. Come, 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 beloved community, to our welcoming sanctuary. We welcome each other regardless of skin color, your size or age, or whom you love, or whether you believe in God all of the time, some of the time, or none of the time. In this place, we seek and give love. We provide a haven for justice and spirituality, and we are a community of open minds, loving hearts, and willing hands. Okay, I always have trouble turning pages. Good morning and welcome to South Valley Unitarian Universalist Society. My name is Cate MacGillivray. My pronouns are she, her, and hers. I'm an older, white-haired, bespectacled woman, and it is my privilege to serve as the worship associate this morning. Our beloved Reverend Laura is enjoying her sabbatical and will be back with us later in the fall. Today, we are honored to have Reverend Monica Dobbins from First Unitarian Church of Salt Lake City with us this morning as the morning's worship leader. So let's take a moment to fully arrive by first waving to our online community, and then take a couple minutes to get up and walk around and greet each other. Please remain standing to sing hymn number 1054.
a congregation that has the courage to try something new. It's great. Good on you, South Valley. As we light our chalice this morning, the symbol of our faith and the light of our commitments to love and justice, receive these words of invocation by Kelly Hayes. I believe we write the meaning of life as we live it. I believe it is up to us to write a story worth living. I do not believe in the surrender of hope or imagination any more than I believe it is acceptable to give up on the survival of others or of all life on earth. There are some things we never surrender, and some things we never surrender to. Let us then light our chalice. Those at home are invited to light a chalice and share in this ritual by entering in the chat. Chalice is lit at, and then the name of your street in the chat box. Please repeat.
There she is. Okay, I'm calling my girls.
Oh, come on up. Help us light the chalice. And if you will, as they light the chalice, please join me in repeating our chalice lighting words. And use our actions, which I don't know, but you do. So you can show me. Light the chalice for the warmth of love, for the light of truth, and for the energy of action, and the flames of resistance. That's great. Thank you. You may be seated.
So today we are continuing our concept of wind and wind resistance, and I have a reflection on that wind. Air moves, and we only know because we see or feel its effects on trees and leaves, wind chimes, laundry on the line, ripples in puddles, flying kites, and our skin. Or we see the destruction of branches down, shingles ripped from roofs, or boats run aground. But we also use it to sail a boat. We lean into the wind, pushing against it to walk. It can help you stay up if you're in the right position, but it can slow you down. It helps you fly faster from the west to the east, and slower from the east to the west. Will we run out of wind? Is it renewable? How critical is wind for climate stabilization? Turns out it's highly crucial. There was a speech entitled Wind of Change, given by Harold Macmillan, Prime Minister of England in 1960. He talked about the decolonization of Africa and its growing nationalism and the end of the British Empire. It was met with mixed emotions, as you can imagine, and a storm brewed, but it was a profound change for the good. There is a Chinese proverb that says, when the winds of change blow, some people build walls and others build windmills. Air hates to be confined. It is always looking for a place to go. So do we fully resist to protect ourselves from change, or do we open to the wind and use it to adapt and grow? The native people remind us of the four winds, of which there are names and colors and responsibilities. Mujikiwis, the spirit keeper of the west wind, and considered by some as the father of all the winds, and pictured as a bear, honors the earth, humanity, and maturity, among other concepts. We need to be knowledgeable and sensitive to the winds. How do we listen and respond more thoroughly to these gifts that have been given throughout time? But then, of course, the true answer is blowing in the wind, which is a metaphor for how fickle the wind is and how mischievous it is as we think we've found the answer to establish peace and compassion for the earth and social justice for the world. But the answer changes, as the wind does. Is the answer just out of touch, or are we just hot air? But when our winds of change blow, do we resist? Can we use it to buoy us up? and lean in? Can we harness the wind to help us get to where we want to go? Can we dance and be a rudder that moves us along? How did our protest go 2 weeks ago? Did we harness the hurricane? Did we shoulder in a bit? Did we put a finger up to see which way it blew to correct our direction? And did we correct our course? From what I've heard, the wind is propelling us in the right direction. Today we will continue to our wind ceremony we initiated on Reverend Laura's last day in May. Remember how she rode off on the gentle west wind, the zephyr, or Mujikiwas, with her magical umbrella and her sturdy brown boots? With the kids this morning, we'll be discussing how to paint with the colors of the mountains and the wind. I'll have your children distribute ribbons to you, and at the end of the service, we'll go out together to the tree in front and weave or tie our ribbons into the yarn. The ribbons will billow, tangle, or droop on the whim of the breeze for the next few months, but they will always remind us to weave a strong web with our physical world, our beloved communities, and be true to our personal intentions. Okay, it's time for all ages, and I'll ask the children to come forward and any adult who'd like to come. I'm going to read something to you, and then we're going to talk. Every rock, tree, and creature has a life, a spirit, and a name. The wolf, the bobcat, the heron, and the otters are my friends. The rainstorm and the river, the trails and the berries are also my friends. We are all connected to each other in a circle that never ends. Anybody recognize those words? No? Okay. So today we're going to talk about the colors and the sounds of the mountains. So you're going to see pictures up here, and what I'd like you to do is just call out the colors that you see up there. Just call them out.
Blue. Yellow. Green.
Yellow.
White.
Gray, I like that.
Sky. Brown.
Can you see okay? You want to move over there, Ren? Okay, so now we've got some really nice mountain colors. How about if we take a closer look? What do we see?
Yellow. Yellow. Purple. Purple. Green. Pink. White.
White, I heard white. All right, great. And now, let's take a closer look. What colors do we see? All right. And do we have another slide for more colors? Oh.
Orange and white. Black.
And another slide.
Black.
Oh my gosh.
Green. Brown.
Okay. Okay, what color, what sound does that frog make? Ribbit. Right. Can we go backwards through the slides? What sound does the fox make?
I don't know. I don't actually know.
They sound like a dog. They yip, yip, yip. Meow. Whine. They whine a little bit. What sound does the river make? Good. I thought that would be a hard one. How about silence? Is there silence up there? What does silence sound like? How about like, can you do that? How about the rain on the leaves? What sound does that make? And you can use your fingers. Can you snap a little bit? Right? And how about the wind in the pines? Exactly. So I want you to pick one of those sounds that you love and stick with it. And we're going to have what's called a voice estra, because this is your instrument, your voice, and you can use your fingers too. So like in an orchestra with instruments, this is our instrument, and we're all going, sorry, Isaac. We're all going to make those sounds. So everybody pick a sound and stick with it. Ready, set, go. Who's doing the frog? I need a frog. All right. Okay, so we've got colors and sounds of the mountains, right? And so now I'm going to scoot over here. Excuse me, thank you. Oh, what sound does the owl make? And there's other birds. Let's make some bird, like caw, caw. Yeah, right. Okay, so now we have ribbons. These are the ribbons of the mountains and the sounds of the mountains and the world around us. Okay? And so I'm going to ask each of you to come out and pick your, not necessarily your favorite color, but maybe the color that means the most to you as far as the world around you. Okay? So choose one, and then we've got one more step to do. Everybody got a color? Okay, so now what we need to do is take these ribbons to your mom and dad and friends out there. So I'm going to have 4 of my youth people come up and help the younger kids distribute them. So what we're going to do with these, you're going to hang on to your ribbons, and when you come back upstairs, we're going to go tie them on the tree out front where the yarn is so they can blow in the wind, all right? Okay, all right. So we can sing our kids out now. This community, our church, and its many ministries are only made possible by the gifts you give of your time, your talent, and your treasure. Many of you pledge monthly to support our work, and for this we are grateful. Your gifts help ensure that we are able to live our values of love and justice in the world outside. Part of our ministry at South Valley includes sharing our Sunday worship offerings with a charitable organization that aligns with our principles and values. Today is the 5th Sunday of the month, which means we will be sharing our offering with the Reverend's Samaritan Fund. This fund provides direct assistance to people in financial need in our community. Please give generously today. Please join me in reading our offertory words. They're printed in your order of service or on the screen. We are this church. We are its hands, its heart, its voice. Together we share the wealth of this community and sustain it with our gifts.
for all we have received and all we have found courage to give. May we be truly thankful. May these gifts be a blessing to the Reverend's Samaritan Fund. I invite you now to join me in a spirit of creative curiosity, prayer, meditation, reflection, contemplation. God of many names, you who are found in the whirlwind and the tornado, you who can be heard rustling the leaves and shushing through the grass, you who lift the wings of birds and ruffle the waves of the ocean, you are Ruach, wind, and you are Ruach, spirit, pneuma, the source of inspiration and of life itself. You are the breath in our lungs, and you are the song on our lips, and the stillness in the deep of night. Breathe within us, breathe among us. Open our hearts to the mystery. Come from the four corners of the earth to blow away stagnation and regret. Let the blessings we long for settle before us like a feather. May something we hear here today inspire us for the work ahead. May it be so. Amen. Thank you, friends, so much for inviting me to speak to you during Reverend Laura's absence. I'm the Reverend Monica Dobbins. I use she or they pronouns, and for the benefit of our folks joining us online who may not be able to see me, I am a short, middle-aged white lady with graying red hair, wearing a black dress and a colorful stole. I just want to take one moment to say thank you so much to the choir. Your music was a gift. Thank you for sharing your gifts with us this morning. And thank all of you for being here. I was fortunate enough to enjoy my own sabbatical last year, so I know how important this time is to Reverend Laura and to you. For a congregation, the benefits of a sabbatical can include the opportunity to learn new skills, to learn to delegate and to trust each other more deeply, and to value how much your minister brings to your mission. For me, it was an invaluable time to slow down, rest deeply, and at midlife, take stock of who I had become and what I wanted for the second half of my life. I also had the incredible opportunity to visit Ireland for 10 days, the realization of a long-held dream. I won't go into it too deeply here. The reasons why Ireland is so important to me would be a whole sermon by itself, and maybe someday I'll preach that. But one important reason was that I wanted to explore one branch of my genetic heritage, to walk the land that I knew my ancestors had walked. And I did. I even got to visit my castle. Of course, it isn't really my castle, but Castle Dunluce is the castle that my ancestors occupied for about 600 years. It's on the coast of Northern Ireland in County Antrim. I mean, it's literally on the coast. It's sort of hanging off the coast over the water, crumbling year by year. And I'm sure that a good deal of the coast beneath it is made up of the stones that have fallen into the water over all these years. It was surreal to stand there and witness this place and know that the people who had cared for this structure hundreds of years ago somehow became part of the structure of who I am. Most of my family tree is shrouded in the mysteries of time and poverty, having likely been too poor to have given any thought to the descendants who might care about who they had been. To be able to trace this one line to such a majestic place was really magical. As I was coming in this morning, I took a look at your yarn bomb hanging from the tree out front. I love it. It's so cool. I'm going to have to talk to our folks at First Church about getting a yarn bomb. It reminded me of something that I heard about Irish knitters, that they have a superstition that if you skip a stitch while you're knitting and it leaves a hole in your work, rather than stopping to fix it, you should leave it there so that the spirits have room to move and won't get trapped in your work. That's comforting to me as a knitter who often messes up my knitting and leaves holes in it. And it would drive me crazy to see that, but it probably will go unnoticed by anyone else. I think it's good to give yourself permission to be imperfect, spirits or otherwise. Your worship theme for this month is resistance, a word that's on our minds much lately as we contemplate with dread the growing authoritarianism in our nation. We wonder how our democracy, once the envy of the whole world, even in its imperfections, could have eroded so quickly, could have fallen so far so fast. And not just our democracy. How did so many of us lose our sense of belonging to each other as a nation? Our sense of responsibility for each other and for the least among us? How did we lose our sense of community? How did we come to build such impenetrable walls around us? We can see that our resistance is not merely political in nature. This is a spiritual problem. Something important is slipping through our fingers as Americans, even if we cannot quite name what it is. And our response is to grasp at it, as though grasping to hold on to water or sand. Or perhaps we feel as if we are grasping onto the edge of a cliff, trying desperately not to be swept off into the turbulence beneath us. Some of you know that I have been teaching a class the last couple of years at First Church called Resisting Fascism, focusing on the work of scholars Timothy Snyder and Jason Stanley. Snyder's book On Tyranny and Stanley's book How Fascism Works have been guidebooks for me in these days, providing clear and simple markers to look for and remedies equally clear, if not always as simple. Some of you have taken this class with me. Well, last year, after teaching a community workshop, I invited folks to join the next iteration of the class, which I plan to begin teaching in a few weeks. As I was saying goodbye to my participants, a member of the community approached me and said, "I think you should reconsider calling your class Resisting Fascism. Because, as you know, what we resist persists." Now, I've heard that phrase before. What we resist persists. And I know there is wisdom in it. Too often, trying to make something go away only makes it stick that much more, such as a bad habit or an unhelpful thought pattern. When we can accept the reality we've been resisting, we can work through it and transform it into something more helpful for our lives. But I couldn't square that up with the situation that we're facing now. For as I said before, this is a spiritual issue. We aren't just resisting a bad habit, and we aren't resisting a political party we don't like or the whims of government. At the deepest level, we are resisting becoming the kind of people we don't want to be. Not just as individuals, but as a nation. We don't want our nation to be a nation of bullies. We don't want our country to be full of people who are self-absorbed or fearful or nihilistic. And it isn't as simple as just reversing those don't want tos into want tos. Because the slide into authoritarianism happens so gradually that often ordinary citizens can't see it until it's too late. So then resistance becomes not just a moment, but a practice, a spiritual practice. A practice of habitually resisting that slide by consciously going the other way toward democracy and freedom and community. A daily, hourly practice of saying no to fascism and saying yes to the world we are dreaming about. How then shall we resist? Shall our resistance be grasping and clinging? It certainly can't be just a practice of acceptance. Maybe it could start with acceptance, but it can't stop there. Professor Snyder suggests 20 specific ways that we might resist tyranny. And if you haven't read his book, it's like $8, and you can read it in one long afternoon. So I strongly encourage you to do so. By now, you've probably all heard his advice, do not obey in advance. Have you heard that? But he also advises citizens to take responsibility for the world they see around them, to contribute to worthy causes, and to be thoughtful about the use of language. All positive steps to resist tyranny by making society stronger. But my favorite lesson from Snyder's book is this: stand out. Be yourself, even if it makes you conspicuous and uncomfortable. Contribute to the diversity of our nation by being the person that only you can be. Stand out for all the right reasons, because your self-respect demands it, because you have committed yourself to a set of values, because your kids and other people's kids are watching you. It takes courage to live like that all the time, especially if we grew up in environments where nonconformity was a threat. We need a different kind of strength for this practice. I remember when I was in Ireland, I visited the island of Inishmore off the western coast. It's one of the Aran Islands. It's a wild place on the edge of the world, it seems. Many of the island's people speak no English, and the winds whip this place day and night. The islands are gridded with these low stone walls that pen in the sheep, cows, and donkeys. Almost every square inch of grass is surrounded by a stone wall, as much as 1,500 miles of wall on 18 square miles of island. But these walls, they're not like walls anywhere else I've been. One wonders what is holding them together. They more closely resemble piles than walls, really. There's no mortar or concrete holding the stones together, and they are lacy with holes. This practice of building dry stone walls is centuries old, yet any one wall may be relatively new and can be moved or rebuilt at any time. These fragile walls, I learned, serve three purposes. First, they keep the animals penned just as effectively as an electric fence, because the animals have learned that if they get too close, the wall will topple over on them. It's evidently pretty uncomfortable, so it keeps the animals well away from the edges of their enclosures. Second, the walls historically protected the ground from the erosion of topsoil, allowing rich pasture to develop and accumulate on the rocky surface of the islands. And third, the walls allow that fierce wind to pass through. If the walls were mortared, the winds of the North Atlantic would topple them again and again. These walls resist the wind by being both strong and soft. The ancient rock is supported by that empty space. In her book, Braving the Wilderness, Dr. Brené Brown writes about having a strong back and a soft front. Most of us can imagine what it means to have a strong back, to know who we are, to ground ourselves in our values, to stand firm without retreating when we are morally tested. But too many of us protect that strong back with armor, becoming defensive or hiding under our shells when the going gets tough. Brown suggests that instead of armor, we need a soft front, a vulnerable presence that can admit to being tired or weak or pressed, that can ask for help, that can take turns and tap out when necessary. Vulnerability, she writes, is the birthplace of love, joy, trust, intimacy, courage, everything that brings meaning to our lives. And if we can't find meaning in life, then what is all this resistance for? If we can't open our hearts, if we can't be seen by others, if we can't feel our feelings, vulnerability is the holes in our wall that allows the winds of life to pass over us and through us without crashing us down. Brown offers one more piece to this picture, a wild heart, which she describes as the ability to be tough but tender, excited and scared, brave and afraid, all in the same moment. To be wild at heart is to embrace these paradoxes of living. And that's what we need most right now, to be able to grieve the world as the world we knew as it fades from view, while also tasting the sweetness that is available to us in this moment, and holding a space at the table for a new world already on its way. To love those with whom we disagree with fully open hearts, while compromising neither values nor kindness, including all of those people out there that the forces of media and politics would have us believe are our enemies. Where are the holes in your walls? The vulnerable places that you may have been thinking of as weaknesses? Consider that those may be the very places where you can draw out the greatest strength. What are the ways in which you stand out? The things that make you different from everyone else? Those just might be the example that someone is waiting to see. Someone is waiting for permission, for someone else to go first. You could be that someone. What values have you embraced for yourself that might be what our community needs in order to become whole? What truth needs to be said aloud in order to reclaim some great freedom for all of us? What we need right now is to stop building impenetrable walls that can topple over in a strong wind. We need walls with holes that hold the ground, no matter how strong the winds, boundaries that are firm enough to protect, yet permeable enough to keep our hearts open. Strong backs, soft fronts, wild hearts that are committed to a future of freedom for all of us. May it be so. Our closing hymn today is number 123. It's our favorite. It's my favorite, Spirit of Life. I invite you to rise in body or in spirit and sing with us. Let's sing it through 2 times. Please remain standing as you wish and join us in our actions as we extinguish our chalice. I invite you to say these words with me. We extinguish